Hey, are you new to Godot or maybe someone who wants to learn some new tips and tricks? Well, you've come to the right place. I've been working on my game for a couple months now, and I've been seeing myself improve a lot. When I started, I didn't know anything about Godot and game development. Now I know a lot more. So, here's 5 tips I wish I knew earlier as I was learning. Have you guys used the Debugger Miscellaneous tab? It's a really useful debugging tool as it tells you what control you're clicking when you're running your game. Sometimes you won't know what it is in your scene that is blocking your mouse input to a button or preventing a tooltip from appearing. Worry no longer because all you have to do is make the click inside the game, check the tab, and it'll tell you where your click is going. So let's check this out inside the game. I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to click around, maybe on top of this. And we're going to check this tab right here, go to Debugger, Miscellaneous, and it's going to tell me that what I clicked was the stage planes, health bar, health fill, which is this right here. Health bar, health fill. This is what's receiving my mouse input, and it even tells me what control type it is. But what if something was going wrong in my game? Well, what that would look like is maybe we can add a control node to this. I'm going to create a control node, create that. I'm going to go over to ordering and I'm going to set the z-index to something ridiculously high, like 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go anchor presets. I'm going to make it full rect so it covers the entire screen, right? But it's invisible. And now we're going to run the scene one more time. And what we're going to realize is I no longer see these tooltips pop up. I can no longer click the items either. And the reason for that is because this control that I just created is blocking my mouse input. So if this is happening to you, go over to mouse, filter, ignore. Save that. I'm going to go back to the game, and now my tooltips are back. Next up is file system filter files. Now this is something that I use all the time now to find scripts, scenes, assets. It makes my life so much easier. I can't believe I didn't use this at the start. So how you use this is, it's really simple. You just type in whatever name of the thing you're trying to find is, and it sounds so simple, but a lot of us probably don't use it enough. So say I'm working on this scene and I want to check out some other scene. So I type in forest, right? And it'll show me everything that's just forest. And that's fine because it reduces so much of whatever's in my file directory. So now I just double click forest right here and I'm in the scene. Another super handy dandy thing you can do with this is if you're trying to make an update to some asset that you have, then it's really easy to just type in the name of the asset and drag and drop so that you overwrite whatever you have in an instant without having to look through whatever asset folder, asset file directory system that you have. It's just you type the name in, you drag and drop, and you're good to go. I can't have a 5 tips list without talking about coding. As a beginner in coding, static typing changed my understanding of GDScript and helped me better understand what I was doing. What exactly is static typing? Simply put, if you're creating a variable, you have to tell Godot what type that variable is. And if you're creating a function, you need to specify what that function is going to return. People say it makes your code more text heavy, but I think it helps so much for 2 main reasons. You know exactly what's going on, and you can leverage autocomplete. Here's one example of how I better understand my script by using static typing. So inside this function called invisible_off, we have this iterator I that I'm using for this for loop right here, and you actually don't need to have a type for this iterator unless you want to statically type it. And the reason why this is useful is because I have this little extra bit right here, I know exactly what I'm iterating over. And what I'm iterating over is cauldron animation. That's what's inside cauldron anim as a child of this node. And for auto completion, let's take a look at this variable item right here. If I were to just create a new variable, let's say new item, right? And I'm going to statically type it, so it's going to be of type inventory item. And basically, if this happens, then Godot knows exactly what this is because we gave it a type. Right above here, I have inventory slot, which I've also given a type. So if I were to do exactly what I did before and utilize this variable that I have, inventory slot, then I can actually access the properties and the functions that inventory slot has because Godot knows what type it is. So I know I want this all to work out, which means that what I need to put in has to be of type inventory item. And so this will be item, which can be auto-completed, just like that. I'm not going to say it's all sunshine and rainbows either. This is one example of where static typing kind of hurts a little bit. Inside craft item, I need to give it an actual item, but it doesn't understand exactly what this is because I never initialized a variable for this and I never set the static type, which is going to be inventory item in this case. So because Godot doesn't understand what this is, I have to cast it using the as keyword inventory item, which means what goes inside here becomes a lot more dense. This is one of the downsides to static typing that you just have to accept. How do you go about static typing then? Well, if you go up to project settings, make sure advanced is on, and then you go to warnings. In GDScript under debug, you have the option to turn these options to warn, and I think that's all I did for my current project settings. And so what this does is if you don't statically type something, the editor is going to give you an error, so it forces you to statically type. Now the next tip is a strange one. I don't consider it to be best practice like all the other stuff that I was talking about, but rather a little tip to help some of you newer users who might struggle with node architecture and passing data. When I was starting, I had no clue how to access variables and send information between nodes. This is a really fundamental part of Godot that you have to understand to progress, but you can still mitigate this issue somewhat. What you're going to do is make sure to reference nodes at the top and connect signals up at the top until you know better. As you improve, you'll have a better understanding of where the data needs to be, where it needs to exist, how to properly access them using signals and references. So by following this tip, you'll likely have to redo a lot of stuff, but at the very least, you won't get stuck like I did when I was first starting and hit a total dead end where I just couldn't continue working on my game. So what is this tip in action? We can see right off the bat that my house screen node, the parent node, which is right at the top, has the script, right? And basically, you don't need scripts to be on these levels. You can just have this one mega script. It's pretty bad, but until you know better, you can get away with doing just one up here. And you're going to notice that some of these, the signal is connected up. I'm still using this because it's a very effective way. So some of these, they don't have scripts at all. And you want to connect everything in here. If you have your nodes, like say I have environment right here and I have house background, and say house background is running some calculation for me. I don't know, it generates gold and it needs to send me a signal how much gold I have, right? The thing about this is, if you have the script at the top, you can reference this node by clicking and dragging, control click drag, and you can make a reference to this, and then you can use this inside a function new returns void, and you can use house background and say it does something for you, blah. Oh, sorry, dab, I don't know. But by making that reference up at the top, you have access to it. So always, if you don't know, just reference it at the top, do all your functions up at the top until you start understanding more about how you want to create your scripts, what node architecture you're going to run with. Make it simple for yourself. If you've got a button like here, connect the button up at the top so that it's easy to work off of it. It's not you click the button and it sends the signal to itself, and then you have to go an extra step to send the signal up to the top, and then you have to send the signal down to another different child. Just run it at the top until you know better. Alright, and here is the last tip. Code folding and using regions. So let's use the file system right here to go look at the inventory slot that I have. I'm just going to throw up the script. We don't need to look at the actual scene. And just scrolling all the way down, you're going to notice that I have all of my functions folded, and I'm using a bunch of these regions, right? And I'm going to tell you guys straight up, it might not seem like this is very useful at the start when you have like 100 lines of code per script, But as it keeps growing, I'm going to tell you that it is so hard to find functions. It is so hard to section off your code properly so that you have a good sense of what's going on, where to look for it, how things flow inside your script. So definitely use folding. Fold all your lines, create code regions for sure. And so how do you create code regions? You're going to use this hash region, and then when you end it, you're going to do hash end region. And this will create a nice little region for you so that you can put specific functions inside. You can have specific areas that have this specific purpose. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory. You guys can see why this might be super helpful. I was able to condense 550 lines into something that I can look at even with the editor scaled up to 150%. I can see all my functions. I know exactly, hey, do I want to look at some traits? What are functions related to traits? And I can just open up this region just like that. And with that, guys, I think this is the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys learned something. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.